we're going to prove it to these other teams out there that not only are we the best team in the boat, but we have the best mechanics, best technicians to have this boat prepared to run this race.
It's dangerous, you know, and the water hurts hard. When you hit the water, there's no soft barrier walls. It's an impact, and it's going to hurt.
We can't afford to have any more bad luck and keep our season on track.
Every bend, every corner, every straightaway is different.
It has to be done right the first time. There's no second chance.
The Offshore Super Series is the top powerboat racing series in the world. These extreme aqua machines are closed canopy boats that can reach bone-jarring speeds of up to 200 miles per hour. This is the most dangerous and expensive motorsport on water. These boats are so powerful, so intense, that they require both a driver to steer and a throttle operator to man the engines, while racing around a 5-mile open water circuit. Cat is the top class in this series, and for the last 3 years, the #1 boat in this class has been the Reliable Carriers machine. That is, until a recent string of mechanical problems this season bumped them out of first place. Now they're in Toronto for the first race to be held on Canadian waters, and they are determined to get back on top. The Reliable Carriers pit crew is unsurpassed in experience and know-how, and this weekend they've got something to prove, that they can still be #1 out on the water.
Well, currently we're in second place. Obviously we have a very competitive boat. It's very fast. Unfortunately we've had some bad luck come our way the last couple races, so it's time to redeem ourselves and get in the first place.
There are no pit stops in these races. It's just full throttles to the stops for 100 miles. So for Offshore Super Series pit crews, it all comes down to preparation. The dry pits is the area where the teams do all of their major preparations. Each team has a designated area where they can set up their equipment. The boats only sit in the water at race time. The remainder of the time, they are stored high off the ground on their cradles. As awkward as it is to work 10 feet off the deck, it's still a whole lot easier than doing your work on the water. Most teams in this series run a 6-man pit crew, but the ultimate responsibility from bow to prop comes down to 2 key men, the crew chief and the engine technician. The crew chief makes the ultimate call on the preparation of the Reliable Carriers boat. To do this requires years of experience and a complete dedication to the sport. Today, that job falls on the experienced shoulders of Eric Hertkamp.
Well, I think it goes down to commitment and dedication. You know, everybody wants to be involved in a race program, but a lot of people don't want to put in what it takes in the commitment and dedication. And when you talk about an Eric Hertkamp, that's what it is. It's commitment and dedication.
To get along on I think any competitive team, it takes everybody to have an easygoing personality. When the tempers get flying and pressures build, you can't have somebody that can't roll with that. That's another part of the job, is keeping the harmony in the team and keeping everybody working together. And we all got to have that same goal, and that's that checkered flag on Sunday.
We communicate well. A lot of times, I think Heath realizes what I'm thinking, and I realize what he's thinking. So it's a pretty good match between the two of us. He's pretty skilled in what he does, and I'm skilled in what I do, and we have a great relationship, and I enjoy working with him.
The Reliable Carriers boat is powered by 2 specialized Stirling engines. Each one generates 800 horsepower, and there is probably no one who knows more about these ultra high-performance engines than Frank McComas.
Frank obviously is the engine man. Frank had built many engines. Frank was employed. He came from Stirling himself. So there's no better person to work on these engines than the guy that used to build these engines. So he works in our camp now solely for Reliable Carriers to give us the ins and outs with these engines, and that's what we need on any given day.
We go through everything after every race, put a wrench on everything. Hopefully nothing falls off. If it's a rough water race, you really have to pay attention and put a wrench on every nut, bolt, just so it does not fall off. And put a couple extra zip ties, put a couple extra wraparound hoses, lines, anything possible. And you just have to just sit here and just take your eyes and keep looking over everything and hopefully you got everything. And most of the time, we do.
Steve Curtis is the throttle man for the Reliable Carriers team. Amongst his competitors, he is regarded as the best there is. And while he's not part of the team's pit crew, he can usually be found with his sleeves rolled up, working alongside them.
Well, as a throttleman of the boat, I really deal with the speed and the trim of the boat. So I organise the bow, attitude, make sure we don't go over backwards or roll over, which we've done once or twice. So basically really doing what they would do in a plane when you're not actually steering it. So just keeping it up on top, nice and loose, flying as high as we can without getting in too much trouble.
The Reliable Carriers boat is owned and piloted by Tom Abrams, a self-made millionaire whose automobile transporting company is the sole sponsor of this boat. It's his hobby, his passion, and he takes it very seriously.
Tom is a great guy. He likes perfection, and he expects the best of everybody, whether you're a wheel polisher or you're a crew chief or you're a mechanic or a truck driver. He wants you to be on this team, and he wants you to be 110% all the time, and that's what he expects out of you.
And we believe as we hit the water tomorrow that we're going to prove it to these other teams out there that not only are we the best team in the boat, that we have the best mechanics, best technicians to have this boat prepared to run this race.
Hi, I'm Brian Abrams, and my dad's the driver and owner of Reliable. On the crew, I help tear down, turn it, do all the work on the boat and everything. My dad's been racing another boat before this one too, and so I've been always in boats and racing, and then I have a go-kart that I drive at home and everything.
This is our support trailer. Up here is the owner's lounge. We have that for the owner and his family, and when he got into racing, he wanted it to be a family thing for this team. Not all the teams look at it that way, but Tom definitely does. The boys are playing PlayStation right now. We have internet, DirecTV. It's all done in teak and granite. We tried to make it as comfortable as home. Over here, on the other end of it, we try to keep on the cutting edge of technology. Again, a lot of the teams are just out here trying to do the best they can with hand tools and whatever they can, but we've got race pack systems where we're monitoring the telemetry of the boat at all times. This is a download from a recent run, pretty much confirms what we've seen on the water, that everything was performing as expected. We're always downloading and checking our data. Back here, we've got just refreshments for the guys. Pretty much everything you would need in a shop is right here at our reach. We've got tools, and Frank is rebuilding something here on the
changing a connector on
MSD.
our MSD box here. Found a bad connector.
Back here is just an area. It actually has a queen-size bed, a shower, and sink, a freezer. If one of the guys need to get away from the rush, we can actually open this bed for them here and close the door, give them a little privacy, let them unwind, chill out, and get ready to run the boat.
The number 20 team will get one test run today out on the busy Toronto Harbor to get their boat primed and ready for the 100-mile race tomorrow. Tom Abrams and Steve Curtis will have just 40 short minutes on the water to test their race setup for tomorrow. It's up to the pit crew to make sure everything goes smoothly.
This is our air intake. This forces air directly onto the carburetor and sort of forces a little bit of air in there, so hopefully gives us a little bit more horsepower. And it seems to have come adrift a little bit from the hatch itself, so we're going to silicone it on and then screw it on so it's a bit tighter. We're going to have to epoxy it on when we get back to the shop, but it's kind of a makeshift for this event.
Today on the boat, we're just going over everything, making sure everything is tight. And today we're changing the C pumps, the impellers on the C pumps. It's not something that probably has to be done, but it's one of those 25-cent parts you change just to be safe.
The C pump is what supplies the water to the engine, and without it, you would run extremely hot and overheat, and the engine wouldn't work very good. And there's really no difference between salt water or fresh water. It works. It's all it knows is it's pumping water. It's kind of like your water pump on your car, except it's called a C pump.
We yet have to change the oil today, both motors. Again, just a precaution. Just make sure everything's right. This weekend, we just need to get back in the winner's circle.
We have to be 110% and get it done right. Because it has to be done right the first time. There's no second chance.
I think we're as prepared as we've ever been for this race. I believe that if we're finishing this boat and as a team, we're going to win the races.
Now that the Reliable Carriers team have completed their pre-race checklist, they have just 1 hour remaining before starting the only practice session heading into tomorrow's race. Now's the time to fuel the boat.
On a 100-mile race, we'll go through 100 gallons of fuel. We burn a gallon a mile. We normally run 110. They didn't bring 110 to this race, so we're running a little higher octane than we normally would, but the motor builder felt confident we'd be all right. I'm not sure what our price is here, but they normally inflate it a little bit at the race sites. I think back home I'm paying $7 a gallon. Here we're probably paying $10 or $11 a gallon. So it's not a cheap, fuel cost is what we win if we win.
It's good, buddy.
Okay, we're all set.
While their boat waits in line for the crane, the team decides to take a moment to grab a quick bite to eat and soak in some of the local scenery. The break, however, does not last for long. News of a backup at the docking crane confirms that their precious practice session is about to be cut short. With less time on the water, the pit crew decides to change the spacers on the stern drive. The drive shaft is the part of the engine's transmission that hangs out the back of the boat and drives the propeller as it churns in the water. Spacers are used to lengthen or shorten the drive shaft. Changing the lengths of the boat's drive raises or lowers the propeller's position in the water, which in turn makes the bow of the boat ride either high or low in the water.
Yeah, we're going to raise the drives up a little bit, which should give us a little bit more acceleration out of the bends. It makes it a little more difficult to handle. But because the testing time's been cut back, we're going to try and do it. You know, we normally run the boat at this setup, so we're going to just try something a little different here. Because it's not salt water, it's fresh water. You've got less buoyancy in the water. So we're hoping that this might give us a little bit of an advantage. This propeller shaft, we're going to raise it a quarter of an inch, will be a quarter of an inch higher.
We took out a 1-inch spacer and replaced it with a 3/4 inch spacer, which moved our drives up a quarter of an inch. It doesn't seem like much, but that'll probably be the difference of a couple miles an hour and considerable acceleration. So we actually 1/4 inch is the finest increments we work in. The manufacturer of the drive makes spacers in 1/2 inch increments, and we had some made in 3/4 or in 1/4 inch increments because it does make a difference, that little bit.
It's been delayed here to getting the boats on the water, so the guys are rushing really hard to get the boat ready to go, and obviously we got to win the race tomorrow.
Just like NASCAR would have done, right?
We need to screw those air guns.
Yeah, we used to do that.
Stainless stuff. It fuels up, you know, it gets hot.
have what they call crane straps. It's a 4-point harness. We mount it to 4 different spots on the boat, and then it's got one big hook in the middle, and then that's where we clamp it to the boat, and then they lift it straight up, and we guide it with ropes to get it into the water, and then the crane sets it where we would like it, and then we do the same process on getting it out.
Each race weekend, the reality of what can happen out on the open water is never far from the pit crew's minds. Powerboat racing has to be one of the most dangerous sports on the planet, and high-speed crashes are often fatal.
The danger for me, it really doesn't affect me that much. I've been around boat racing for 13 years, and it just so happens I crewed for one of the guys, and they actually did die in the sport. And actually, I know 2 people since my career. And it's just like any other motorsports. Anybody that gets in these things, whether it's a car or a boat, they know it's a risk, and it's dangerous. And the water hurts hard. You look at other forms of racing, they come up with soft barrier walls and stuff like that. Well, when you hit the water, there's no soft barrier walls. It's an impact, and it's going to hurt. And I hope and pray every race when they get in. I always shake their hand, tell them safe, keep it right side up, and bring it back home.
These things are awesome. You got 2 engines, pumping out close to 2,000 horsepower or whatever, and you're running them on the edge. It's a pretty wild feeling, and it changes. It's not like car racing where you've always got the tarmac, always stays the same. Every bend, every corner, every straightaway is different. Even if it's flat sometimes, you hit a wake, the boat will jump sideways 20 feet. It's a wild feeling. It's a rush.
During this 40-minute test session, Tom Abrams and Steve Curtis will push their boat to the limit, testing every element of their race setup. They also need to make sure they've made the right propeller and spacer choice for the new Toronto course. Ultimately, they'll need to verify that there will be no mechanical failures tomorrow. And the best way to do this is to push the throttles down to their stops and see how everything feels and sounds at 150 miles an hour. WHM is currently on top of the Cat Division point standings, and the team behind her are longtime rivals of the Reliable Carriers crew.
They're 20 boats. If anybody has a horseshoe, them guys got a horseshoe, for no doubt. They've been running along and been out front a lot. They do a lot of homework, but you're not always on top. Every now and then, every dog has his day.
WHM and Reliable have a long time rivalry between the two. And so there's always a lot of little trash talk between the crew members. But you know what? The final results are at the end of the day. And if we're out front, that speaks enough for itself.
We watch them. We know what they're doing. And we like chasing them around and making them nervous. And it seems to show. I mean, they've had some problems with the bottom of the boat. They can't seem to keep it down. They have to turn it upside down every now and then just to make sure they know how to fix it.
WHM is in the lead in the point standings right now, and one of the reasons is because we flipped in Fort Myers. If we didn't flip in Fort Myers, I think we'd be like only 5 points behind. But if we win today and they come in 3rd place today, we're right back in the hunt of things.
But it's fun chasing them around, making them do crazy stuff. We enjoy it.
The offshore power boats use the practice sessions to get a feel for the new 5-mile Toronto course. Practice also offers an opportunity to attract new fans to this fledgling race series. During practice sessions, the spectators can see these boats being pushed to the razor's edge. Even during practice, these drivers don't hold anything back in their quest for the #1 spot.
It was a good test today. I felt our lap times were good. We were a little disappointed we didn't get WHM, which is leading us in the championship. We didn't get their lap time, so it didn't give us anything to gauge off of. One of the other boats, we got their lap times, and we were significantly faster than them. I know that our lap times was good. It's just how good it was.
As of right now, we're going to keep that setup that we have with the boat until tomorrow morning when we're able to look at the water conditions. If this stays the same, we're going to leave the same setup that we have on the boat right now.
With his feet back on dry and solid land and feeling good about the practice run, throttle man Steve Curtis takes 5 for a quick interview.
And I went whizzing around this bend, and I had a big long lead and had this big accident. The boat just exploded. And I woke up, I was knocked unconscious in the water with the steering wheel. It's all bent like this. And there was no one around. So I swam to the shore, and I came to a little restaurant, and no one spoke English. I didn't speak a word of Italian. I went out, and I got in there, and I was talking to these people, you know, that I'd had an accident and this sort of thing. They didn't understand a word. All they wanted to do was feed me and give me lots of red wine. So I got absolutely blasted, like you would. And meanwhile, they all think I'm dead. The boats, billops of the boats have floated up everywhere, and they've got these big things going up there doing all this business. And I'm just in there just having the time of my life. And eventually the owner of the bar called up, found the race organisers and said, hey, we got this drunken powerboat racer in here, will you get him out here? They said, oh, we wondered where he was, we thought he was dead. They had to pick me up, and I was so drunk they had to give me an ambulance.
With the practice session over, the number 20 boat is taken back to the dry pits to await an engine inspection by an OSS official and an engine specialist from Sterling Performance, the manufacturer of the boat's engines. Driving these big rigs is no walk in the park at the best of times. Hook up a $1 million racing boat as cargo, and you've certainly got your hands full. It takes solid nerves and years of practice to get behind the wheel of one of these trucks. One wrong move could be very expensive.
Ronnie's probably one of the most experienced truck drivers in this whole Offshore Series circuit. He drives for Reliable for a living. He's one of Tom's #1 drivers, and he's awesome driving around these big trucks. As you can tell, it's pretty long wheelbase, and he's one of the best I've worked with in a long time. I've seen him get in a lot of tight positions that I was like, I don't think he's ever going to get out of it, and he was able to do it without scratching anything. That's the important thing, because Tom don't like scratches on his vehicles.
Oh, it's just a lot of practice. You know, just take your time, that's the main thing. You know, you rush it, you'll get in a mess. You know, if you scratch it and then it comes back on me like I wrecked the day, but, you know, just try not to.
The guys at the back of the engine right now, one of them's Jason, he's from Sterling Performance, and the other guy was Dennis, which is the OSS inspector. Anytime when you work on the engines, when you rerun the engines after a couple races, you have to have an inspector in sight to make sure that you're doing it properly and you're not changing engines. And they're the same engines you had from the last race, because you get points on those. So they're up there doing the last final adjustments on that, and they're going to give the okay to go. And when they do give the okay to go, then we're going to make our final last little things, and we'll be done for the day.
Everything's in good condition. Starts back over again. All good to go. Put it back together. Good to go.
Race days start early for the pit crew. They must leave themselves plenty of time to work on the boat's setup for each new course and potentially changing weather conditions.
Today's race day, it's Sunday. One of the things we usually do is we back the boat up to an area where we can start up the engines to make sure everything's okay, because obviously yesterday did a lot of minor adjustments. We want to fire them up and make sure everything's okay so we don't have a problem when we go put it in the water. So it's kind of a pre-race test fire. The only thing left to do today yet is to just test fire the motors, make sure.
You want to do that now?
Yeah.
That'd probably be a good idea.
Get it done and over with.
In case there is an issue, we're not waiting till the last minute.
We got several hours that we can fix it if there's an issue. Just got to get the water hose picked up. Neutral, go ahead.
Sounds good. Thing looks good. Ready to go.
Gonna go win today.
No doubt about it.
Just a couple little last-minute race preparations, you know, just to make sure the props slide on and off nice and easy. A lot of times with the salt water, you get a little rust build up here, and you know, just make things a little easier when we decide to put them on, so they're all nice and clean. Once we get it all cleaned up, we usually put a little grease on them, so that when they're out there running under the extreme conditions, they'll come back, and when we try and take them off, we'll be able to get them off nice and easy.
It's now only a few hours until today's race, and the team has to make the final call on their propeller and spacer setup.
It's more bumpy now than it was this morning, and we've still got 2 hours before our race. My guess is we'll probably go down one size on prop. The change I see now versus 2 hours ago. Talking over with Steve to see what he thinks. He's down the way looking at the same thing I am. So as long as we're both seeing the same thing, which I think we are, we'll probably make the change.
Well, the props are, everybody thinks that they're not that important, but it is a very important piece of equipment to have, and it's a challenge to make sure you have the right setup and you pick the right prop for the correct race conditions. You know, you can have all the horsepower in the world, and if you can't get your prop to hook up right and get your drives and everything situated and accelerate right, you're not going to do very good on race day. It's kind of like if you had a drag race car, if you can't get your horsepower to your rear tires to get it to go down the track, it's not going to work. The props are pretty much the same thing with a boat. It's important that you have the right diameter, the right pitch, and that just comes with a lot of years experience of what to use. And Steve Curtis is a master at that from all of his racing experience.
So you think leave it the way it is?
Yeah, I reckon so. I mean, we're going to move around a bit, but...
Pleased with yesterday's results, throttle man Steve Curtis decides to stick with the same setup and hopes they will continue to be the fastest boat out on the water.
You know, I kind of feel sorry for them sometimes because they're so technical that they make a whole lot more out of it than what it is. And you know, me being from the old school, this is not rocket science, but they're trying to make it that way. They're working on it. We like to put them to work. I feel like I really put them to the test because when I run by them and when I beat them, they're scratching their heads because they're over with computers and we're just doing it with wrenches. Nice guys, way too smart for me.
As race time approaches, the team's recent string of bad luck begins to weigh heavily on the pit crew.
We can't afford to have any more bad luck and keep our season on track, right? We lose one more like that. That's the season. So. What do you? They've glassed in the lead. I've got decals to put on.
I'm done with everything. I'm ready to go.
You're all set?
I'm ready to put props on. Drain plugs.
Well, we're going to run the same ones we ran yesterday, 33s. Go ahead and put them on. Put the covers on. Go ahead.
What time are we going to go to the crane?
1:30. We'll head over to the crane.
1:30 it is.
Okay.
It's about an hour before the race. Eric and Steve and Tom have checked out the water situation.
And the setup on the boat is going to stay the same, and we just now picked our propeller selection for the day. So we're going to be ready to go. And as you can see, they're polished up nice and pretty. And as if you notice real closely, you can tell how sharp these are. Any little nick on any one of these, after every run, we go ahead and file them down, put sandpaper on them because you want them nice and sharp so it cuts the water really, really well. You don't want anything for friction to slow you down.
You know, they are so easy, they eat what we feed them. Isn't that great? But you know what? My theory is, you know, you probably shouldn't eat too much before you go out there and race. So, but no, they eat what we feed them. And this is a staple for out here. I mean, you can't do too much. You can't do like Caesar salad and all that. These make you go faster on the water. There's secret ingredients in here. Mystery food, mystery meat.
72.
With only minutes remaining before the boat has to leave the dry pits for the start, the Reliable Carriers team goes over their final race strategy one last time. Their main concern is the current series leader, the WHM boat.
What we were talking about is when we come out way back on the parade lap, he's going to start accelerating. So we're coming out of that parade lap on that one corner.
Right.
We're going to be accelerating all the way. We're going to push the
Going wide.
We're going to
That's
push
what I
the
say.
field.
You just, even on the parade lap, don't let Billy get a nose in front of us. He always does. He was pushing the pace boat last race. I wouldn't even look at the pace boat. Just let Billy push, but don't let him get in front of us.
All right. We're not going to let him dictate what the race does.
Feeling confident that every detail has been covered, the team goes into race mode and moves from the dry pits to the docking crane. The wind in the Toronto harbor has suddenly changed direction, and so must the pit crew. Eric decides they must quickly make a spacer change that will allow the boat to cut through the choppy water.
One last minute adjustment. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Ronnie. Take that nut off.
The number 20 team replaces their spacer with one that is slightly smaller. This will allow the bow of the boat to rise above the choppy conditions of Lake Ontario. That slight lift should translate into better handling and more speed.
We stayed with the 33, but we went down a 1/4 inch. We compromised.
It's a mind game at this point. Like, everybody's questioning why we're doing it, and obviously it's sort of follow the leaders, and now they're questioning, did they make the right call? I feel good. It's going to give me better steering in the boat. It's going to make the boat handle better. Obviously we were watching the wind, the flags, and what they were doing, so it makes me feel a lot better at this point.
Before each race, all boats in this class are weighed while being moved with the docking crane. To ensure an even playing field, the OSS has a minimum 9,000-pound weight that all cat boats must meet before they're allowed to race. The Reliable Carriers boat is light, and they must add extra ballast to their boat at every race in order to meet the regulations. The pit crew must be very careful not to go over this minimum. Every extra pound will have a negative effect on the boat's performance.
No. Ain't no way in hell. Ain't no way in hell.
What do you think it should be at?
10,250.
Set it down, pick it up again if you want.
Is there anything in the cockpit? Helmets and everything's in there, isn't it?
Helmet.
Can I set it down?
That's
You mind?
14 pounds.
There's 2 helmets, there's fenders. We're 200 pounds heavier than we should be.
Well, we added 150.
I've counted that.
All right.
What else is in there?
That's it.
That's it? All right, we'll put it in. I'll just take out what I need to take out. I'll make sure I come out on this crane, though, so I can...
What's that?
I want to come out on this scale so it weighs the same, because I'm going to adjust for that.
Yeah, you have to.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll deal with it.
All right.
That don't make sense. That don't make any sense.
Unless our reading yesterday was wrong.
Steve. Steve. We're really heavy.
How heavy?
10,440. So we're 150 heavy right now. If that's the case, I could take the fixed weight out and be legal. We would be 9,000 pounds without the fixed weight if this weight is correct. I can take 100.5 ounce.
I don't think we should do that just in case that scale's on.
No, well, we're coming back out on the same one. I just told Mike, I said, I want to make sure I come out on your scale. Yeah, my numbers tell me I should be 10,250 right now.
And we're 10,440.
10,440.
We got a... Well done, buddy.
After a second weighing of the boat, the Toronto scales readings are consistent. Eric is certain that his numbers are correct, but goes ahead and removes 150 pounds of lead weight from the engine compartment at the stern of the boat. Ultimately, this will work in their favor, as everyone knows that less weight means more speed. The OSS may be the only motorsports series in which competing teams can be found standing, walking, or sitting on each other's racing machines. This is partially because limited docking space for these 40-foot boats creates challenging working conditions, and also because traveling the world together to race in this dangerous competition clearly cements close relationships.
I think we made the right setup. The wind seems to have gone down, then it's picked up again. So I think we're definitely competitive, and that's the main thing going in there. Now it's just down to us to drive it around there pretty quick.
Tom and Steve, they put a lot of trust in us. If they didn't have trust in us, we would not be working for the team. You know, they rely the trust fact that when the boat leaves the dock, I turn the air bottles on for them. Because if I don't turn the air bottles on for them, then they don't have any air. If they go out there and crash, then they don't have any air. So, you know, they could intentionally dive and drown if they don't have any air in their air system. So, I mean, it's just one thing after another. And, you know, when they leave the dock, they said, air on, air's on, you know. And if I wouldn't say that, and if they wouldn't ask, you know, they could be second guessing themselves out there. So it's just a whole team effort of everybody. When the boat leaves the dock and it goes out there and it mills around, I always worry, you know, is the batteries charged up enough? You know, if it stalls, is it going to restart again? So when that boat's out there running, by the time it does its, you know, 12 laps for the race or 18 laps for the race, I always have to chew a lot of gum or play with a pencil because it's just intense. You know, you always think to yourself, you know, is this bolt tight? Or is that safety wired? Or is this zip tied? Or is a header going to fall off? Is a water hose going to break? You know, it's just non-stop until the race is done, and then you go, whew, I did it, you know. And then after that, the adrenaline goes to the next race.
As the race starts, a terrible realization hits the crew. The reliable carrier's boat is nowhere to be seen. only has the boat not started the race, but the crew is unable to make contact with the boat by radio. Frustrated by the lack of radio reception at the water's edge, one of the crew members rushes inland in an effort to make radio contact with the boat. The all call goes out as vital seconds are lost.
Steve or Tom, this is Frank. You got a copy? Eric, this is Frank. You got a copy? Loud and clear. Clear, Frank. I had radio contact with Tom and Steve, and I lost them. Bob, do you copy? Yeah, I got a copy. It looks like the towboat's hooking up to it right now. Roger that. There's something wrong with my headset, evidently. I just took it off. Now I can hear you and talk to you. Yeah, there's a towboat alongside them right now. They're out of the boat on the deck, and it looks like they're hooking the towboats up. Roger that. Yeah, the towboat's got them. I think they're going to be under tow now. So I think that's the end of it.
At this point, it's a pretty disappointing day. The boat didn't make the start of the race. We don't exactly know why yet. We don't know until the boat gets back here and figure out what happened.
The number 20 boat, though safe, must bob helplessly in the water, waiting for the race to finish before they can be safely towed in. The blow is crushing to the team. A DNF or did not finish means absolutely no points will be earned after the weekend of hard work and team effort. Though they still remain in second place, the gap to first has now widened significantly. With only 3 rounds remaining, the only way they can win the championship now will be to finish first at all 3 remaining races.
Where are you guys at? Towed in now behind the towboat. I mean, we should be back at the, about the planes, I was thinking about 5 minutes. Okay, well, we'll see you there.
When I first realized we had a problem is when the boat didn't go by me down on turn 7. So from there it was dead silent. Nobody even came on and said there was a problem until I radio out and asked what was going on. And then our helicopter informed me they were underneath the cockpit trying to find out why the motor wouldn't fire.
It's real disappointing because it's not like we've gone out there, we've run hard and broken, or we've even been in the hunt. You know, we might as well stayed home this weekend and, watched it on TV, for all the good it did us. So it's very disappointing. The guys have put a tremendous amount of effort into it, and it's all come to zilch.
Oh, I feel very disappointed. I'm sure everybody on this team feels just as disappointed, and I'm sure Tom and Steve feel the most disappointment because it's somewhat embarrassing when you're sitting out in the middle of the field. You can't go anywhere, and all the other boats are running by you, and you got to get towed in. Looks like we had some type of short in the boat. We don't know exactly why the short happened, but caused a voltage spike and took out both ignition boxes, and that's why we didn't complete the race. Actually, that's why we didn't start the race.
I mean, I don't know what we could have checked. It was running well yesterday. It ran from the dock today. How do you check for something like that? How do you follow that up? It's just one of them things, and it's, I've been racing for a lot of years now, and that's the first time I haven't made the start.
We needed to turn things around, and we certainly didn't. We didn't even, this is a no-show. We didn't even take the green flag. So this hurts worse than anything we've done yet this year.